Hello there, how you doing? Just going back over some of the old FOIs and the data and the disparities between them. Just some little thing that's bothering me. So I'm looking at 3 documents here. So what I'm looking at is, I'll put them all at the end, I think, as a series of screenshots so you can have a look at them. So the first one is the Walid Aslam FOI from 2018. I think that's right, 2018. Yeah, that's what was done. A really early one that people were working from for a long time. I've just got to call them up here as I go along. And with that Walid Aslam one, it was quite detailed, and it was much more detailed than later requests, in a sense. But they said that much later they looked at the phrase used was we looked at all the different platforms and we did a manual check. It was something of that sort. They did a manual check, and in 2023 they came up with a different set of figures. And so that's like the 2023 more recent FOI that's been sent through. I'll put a screenshot of that at the end as well. And the third document is this written document from Thirlwall. I'm just going to call it up again. What's it called? Thirlwall. It just says all the neonatal deaths linked to the Countess of Chester Hospital in 2015 and 2016. I'll put a screenshot of that as well at the end. And they're talking about 18 deaths. So overview of that document. This document sets out an index to all the neonatal deaths. It lists them that occurred in 2015 and 2016, and it's saying it's 18 of them. 10 neonatal deaths in 2015 and 8 neonatal deaths in 2016, but it's including 4 deaths that occurred at other hospital neonatal units post-transfer, which also include baby K. And it also includes 1 death in the central labour suite. So that's obviously a very, very young, it's just after the baby's been born, isn't it? And the central labour suite hadn't had a chance to go to the neonatal unit at all. At the Countess of Chester Hospital, it says here it's a separate unit from the nurseries, where the unexpected deaths and the indictment babies occurred. This baby was not the subject of a police investigation. So their total in this Thirlwall document is 18 deaths. In the original Walid Aslam, I've got to call it up, the Walid Aslam 2018 FOI, they've got a total here for 2015 and 2016 of 17 deaths. But they miss out deaths in 2 months that we know happened because they form part of the indictment, which is why for a long time I've been going with the idea that 2 deaths have been missed out, so there must have been at least 19 deaths there. But for some reason the Thirlwall document resolves it all down to 18. Why is there that disparity? When you look at the document from the more recent FOI, which I presume was gained in post-2023 when they did this so-called manual check to look across so-called different platforms in order to make it more accurate. It seems as though they've taken off, see the totals for the 2 years there and that are 13 deaths. 13 deaths. But the Thirlwall document is saying 18 because it's including 4, which are post-transfer deaths, transfer from COCH to level 3 units, including baby K, and 1 death in the maternity suite. So that would make 18. In the 2023/2024 FOI information, I'll put these screenshots of all these at the end. They've put in the 2 deaths in August 2015 and December 2015, where there are babies that end up on the indictment, whereas in the 2018 document, 2018 FOI, those were missed out. That's why I was always saying there must be at least 19 deaths, but we're still one out. We're still one out, I think. Are we one out? One death out? I think it matters, because why would there be one death out? Why would there be one death out? And the one I'm beginning to wonder that for some reason, because when we look back at the Thirlwall document, let's have a look at it again. What does it say? All the neonatal deaths linked to the Countess of Chester Hospital in 2015 and 2016. Well, it's saying neonatal deaths. In the 2018 FOI, it's split up into early neonatal, late neonatal, and post-neonatal. We've got a situation here where we've got a late neonatal death in August of 2016. We've got a late. So in the 2018 Walid Aslam FOI, in August of 2016, this is another thing that I've been remarking upon all the way along as well, before they decided that their FOIs are all wrong and they had to do them all again in 2023, just to coincide with the trial, it would seem. How it was so badly out in the first place is another question that, would be worth asking, wouldn't it? But you've got this death in August of 2016 of a late neonatal. That's between, I think it's between 8 days and 28 days, isn't it? I never know whether it's the end of the 7th day and then 27 days, or is it 8 and 28? But post-neonatal is post-28 days, isn't it? Why do I think that August death of the late neonatal baby is one that's been missed off? Why do I say it's been missed off? Because there are 17 showing on the 2018 FOI, 17 deaths for these full 2 years, but they miss out 2 babies that are on the indictment. That takes it up to 19. The Thirlwall document says there's a total of 18 deaths, and they're including. So I can only infer that the disparity between the 2018 FOI, in which it says there are 17 deaths, albeit they're missing out 2 babies on the indictment, and the FOI from 2023/2024, when they've done this manual review of it, and on that FOI they said there's 13 total. That figure 13 matches with the statement. That figure of 13 matches with the statement of the Thirlwall document. But let's have a look at the 2023/2024 FOI figure. And what does that say in terms of the August? What happened in August 2016 there? Well, nothing. There's no death showing. So just to go over that, in 2018, in an FOI, the Walid Aslam FOI, we're told that there's a death in August 2016. So this is always significant, because it's the idea that there are no deaths post Lucy Letby leaving. And Stuart Gillam has done some fantastic videos on that, and a very recent one to show that, well, but there were deaths, but they're happening. Yeah, they were happening afterwards, and they were happening at level 3 units afterwards. And there are other deaths in terms of Ollie Stopforth, and I would check out Stuart Gillam's video on this. But I'm just concerned about this disparity of one death, and I think it's homing in on this August 2016 death. Why would it disappear? And if it was, if that August 16 death that is shown on the 2018 FOI, and which disappears on the 2023-24 FOI, if that's one of the ones is a death that happens at a level 3 unit, i.e. after transfer, post-transfer, as the phrase is on the Thirlwall document. I'll print these at the end, not print them, I'll put them up. The various pages and in a sequence, and then you can just see and freeze the frame and stuff. If it's one of those 4, and we're still not reaching 19 deaths. I still think there's something. I don't know. There's something in there with that. There's something wrong. That it's got to be the case that with the 2018 FOI, there had to have been a minimum of 19 deaths they're showing. But it's presumably they're including ones there that are post-transfer, but for some reason they put them in there. There's 17 showing, but there's August and December 2015 missing. That takes it up to 19. Then the 2023-2024 brings it down to 13 deaths, which matches the Thirlwall document. But then the Thirlwall document makes it explicit that there are 4 deaths post-transfer, takes it up to 17, and 1 death in the labour suite at COCH, that's 18. So the question I've got to through going through this is why, if it kind of makes sense, why there was a disparity, if it sort of makes sense, why there's a disparity between 2018 FOI and 2023-24 FOI, between this 17 and 13 figure. That's a difference of 4, isn't it? What's the figure 4 mean? The 4 deaths that occurred post-transfer. Is that what we're meant to infer from that? That in the original FOI they put the post-transfer deaths in there? Or did they? Or is that just a happenstance? I just want to know how they got it so different, Is that the explanation for it? That difference of 4 is that? But then I think this August 2016 death, which is a late neonatal death, which one is that then? Which one is that of the 18 that Thirlwall talks about? Well, it's not the one, the death in the central labour suite. It's not baby K. And I think there are 2 in January of 2016. So in other words, in the FOI of 2018, there's 2. There's 3 showing in January, isn't there? Let's have a look at that again. You've got in January, this is the thing I went into a lot in earlier videos. There's 3 deaths in 1 month. And I was making a big thing of that, but because it's like, that's, but none of those deaths end up on the indictment. So that's on the 2018 FOI, it's saying 3 deaths. But does that mean 1 death? Because in the 2023-24 FOI, that gets reduced to 1. Are those other 2 deaths that happen at level 3 units? And that's why they reduce it to 1. I don't know, there's a disparity of 1 deaths, and I'm wondering if that is the... It's just so hard to work out what's right with these figures. Is any of it right, actually? Is any of it right? And when you also consider whether some deaths, some stillbirths may have been, some early neonatal deaths may have been miscoded as stillbirths along the way as well. I don't know. So you've got the disparity of 2 in January 2016 between the 2018 FOI and the 2023 FOI. What other disparities have we got here? So in the 2018 FOI, we've got, for the rest of the year, we've got 1, February, March, 1 death each, and 2 in June, 1, and 2. And then we've got the August one as a late neonatal death, and all the other ones are early neonatal deaths. But what do we have? That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're saying in that. But in the 2023, 2024 FOI, I've got to call this up now. There's only 5. There's a difference of 3 there. One, 2. I don't know. There's still. I just think there's still an unexplained 19th death. I believe there is. The reason I believe it's the August one is because we don't have a figure in August at all. We don't have a figure in August at all. Or is that suggestive that that's a post-transfer death? If all the post-transfer deaths that had been quote-unquote wrongly listed on the 2018 FOI were now brought into it again in terms of that Thirlwall document, and they were looking at all the post-transfer deaths. In other words, just to remind us what they say that document is at Thirlwall is that all the neonatal deaths linked to the Countess of Chester in 2015 and 2016, presumably they mean the full years, don't they? But have they missed off that August death? And if so, why? And what was it? And what were the circumstances there? Was that a death? And this is the 19th death. The reason I'm saying 19 again is because original FOI shows 17, which I'm inferring includes I'm inferring that includes 4 of the post-transfer deaths in there, even though they didn't happen at COCH. 4 from 17 is 13. That's what we get in the 2023-2024 FOI. But then, as I said, in 2018 FOI, there are 2 missing, which are indictment babies of August and December 2015. That takes it up to 19 deaths. What should be 19 deaths total on the 2018th. Sorry, should be 19 deaths on the 2018 FOI, but there are 17 showing. But there has to be at least 19, because they're missing out 2 babies that are on the indictment. But the Thirlwall document resolves the final figure of all deaths, including post-transfer deaths, and even a death that's not in the neonatal unit, but in the labour suite. They resolve the figure at 18. Are they including the August 2016 death of the late neonate baby in this list of 18 deaths? Are they? I'm not sure they are. If not, why not? We know it's post the month after Lucy Letby has been taken off the unit and put onto the clerical sort of admin section. The Island of Lost Souls, as Jayaram calls it still probably. I don't know, there's something weird about this. Let me just do a pause a minute. Okay, I'm just going to have to flip between them. I just, without doing something fancy with the... Okay, let's go for... Okay, here we are, look. Let's go through all the months. January 2015, let's go through all the full 2 years. January 2015. Okay. January 2015, we got one death in January 2015. Then we've got in the 2020, that's in the 2018, that's in the 2018 FOI, one death in January 2015. We haven't got a death showing at all in the January 2015, in the I'll call it the 2024 FOI. I'll call it the 2018 FOI, 2018 FOI, and the 2024 FOI. So 2018 FOI, one death in January 2015. 2024 FOI, 0 deaths. Presumably, that's post-transfer then. So we've got one post-transfer. One post-transfer accounted for. Now we go back to nothing in February for the... we're going through 2015 now. We're looking at the 2018 FOI. Then we come to May 2015. No, okay. So we've got this one January death that doesn't appear in the later FOI. Presumably that's post-transfer. Then we go up to, we're into June. Then we're into June. 3 deaths in June, it says here, in the 2018 FOI. 3 deaths in June. In the 2024 FOI, we've got 3 deaths, so that matches. So we've got one presumable in the later FOI. One of them is not there because it's a post-transfer death, possibly, don't know. Then July 2015, we've got 1 death in the 2018 FOI. 1 in July. And in the 2024 FOI, we've got 0 in July. 0 in July. So that's presumably the second post-transfer death. So we've got 2 post-transfer deaths accounted for here. We're getting somewhere now. I'm trying to understand the disparity between the 2 FOIs and linking it with the Thirlwall document with the final figure of 18. So we've got 2 post-transfer deaths accounted in terms of the disparity between the 2 FOIs now. Then we've got, saying here, we've got one death in August in the 25th. Sorry, let me go back. I've got to do this in proper order. In the August 2015, we've got 0 deaths in the earlier FOI, the 2018 FOI. That was the mistake, obviously, because that's one of the indictment babies, a murder conviction. And then that's been put in there now in the 2024 FOI as 1 death in August 2015. So that's put in. Then we come to September 2015. And in the earlier FOI, 2018 FOI, it says 2. Early neonatal deaths. Earlier FOI says 2. And in the later FOI, 2024 FOI for 2015, it also says 2. That matches. Then October, in the earlier FOI, the 2018 FOI, it says 0 deaths. But we know again that there's a death there that is should be on there. And that was one of the missing ones because it was on the indictment. It's an indictment baby death. It's 0. But in the later FOI in 2024, they put it back in as 1 death in October 2015. 1 death in October 2015 in the later FOI, the 2024 FOI. Then to finish off, to finish off 2015, we've got a death. We've got a late neonatal death. We've got a late neonatal death in November of 2015 in the earlier FOI, which is 2018 FOI. 1 in November, late neonatal death. Now, what have we got? It's got nothing. It's got nothing. It's got nothing there. This is even more strange. So there's nothing in the November for a late neonatal death. Presumably that's the third post-transfer death then, is it? It's not the baby in the it's not the baby in the suite, is it? It can't be, because anyway, they missed one out there, so that's the third one. It's not adding up. It's not going to add up. There's something wrong with these figures. I know that there is. Anyway, finish it off. December 2015, there's one early neonatal death in the earlier FOI, and that matches in the later FOI, one death in December. So yeah, so we've got 3 post-transfer ones potentially accounted for, but then we move into 2016. This is now, it's going to get even stranger. We move into 2016 now, earlier FOI, which is the 2018 FOI, nearer to the time when it's all happened, which apparently is all wrong. We've got 3 early neonatal deaths in January, 3 of them, and we've already accounted for, probably accounted for 3 of the post-transfer ones from this earlier FOI in 2015, but we've got a disparity of 2 here, because in 2016, in January, we've got 3 deaths showing, early neonatal deaths. 3 deaths showing. And in the 2024 FOI, how many have we got? 1. So that takes it beyond, that takes it to 5. So we can't have 5 deaths post transfer, can we? Because Thirlwall's telling us that there were only 4. So the disparity there. Might as well finish it off, because there probably might be other unusual things. February 2016, early FOI, it shows 1 death. 1 death. Later FOI, 2016 February, 1 death. 1 death in March in the early FOI. And 1 death in March. So those February, so they match. February and March's figures match. January is 2 out. And we're up to 5 potential post-transfer, or if that is the reason for them. Then we come to June. We've got the 2 deaths in June 2016. And that matches 2 deaths in June and in the later FOI. And in the rest of the later FOI, which is from 2024, to remind you, we've got no other deaths showing. But in the earlier FOI, let me just do this again. Oh God. In the earlier FOI, we have a death in August, which is a late neonatal death. So we've already counted for a disparity of 5 between the FOIs, 3 of them across 2015 and 2 from January 2016. And in other words, are these the post-transfer ones? But we're already 1 ahead. We're 5 of those already. And we've got this August death showing that nobody seems to be, that's not been accounted for. And that's the 6. So that's the 6 in total. You add the 6 to the 13 deaths that Thirlwall says happens, and then you get a total figure of 19 in reality. Well, not in reality, but based on these documents. But Thirlwall said there was only 18 in total, and they're including a death. This is even, I think there's a disparity of 2 here, because they're including a death that happens in the maternity unit, and that's not a post-transfer death. So I'm not sure, and I think that would have been coded in probably in the earlier FOI as a stillbirth. I think that was probably coded as a stillbirth. I know it's hard to follow without looking at the documents. I'll put on some screenshots at the end. I'll put on the screenshots at the end, and you can look at them and see how you think they marry up, and why is it resolved to 18 deaths? What's happened to that late neonatal death in August 2016, which was always a problem for the story they're telling. In other words, that there is a death that happens after Lucy Letby leaves just the very next month. Are we meant to believe that FOI from 2018 just puts a random death when it hasn't happened at COCH, and it's not a post-transfer death either? We've got a greater disparity than the amount of post-transfer deaths that Thirlwall tells us happened. We've got 6 to deal with, and they're only mentioning 4. I can't include the baby that sadly died in the maternity unit. I think that's something else altogether. I think that was coded as I suspect that was coded as a stillbirth. But we've got a disparity between the 2 FIs of 2 deaths now, which is that difference between 17 and 19 deaths. I don't know. It's just, these figures will drive you mad, but there's a disparity there. I think it may centre around, I think there's a disparity of potentially 2 deaths, certainly 1. And I think that one could be this August 2016 death, which works against the narrative of no deaths after Lucy Letby. That works against that, doesn't it? Because it's the next month after she leaves. After she's told to leave, sorry, she doesn't leave, she's made to leave. Exiled, as it were, So, yeah, I'll put some screenshots at the end. I've never gone through it like that month by month, but there's something not right with that. And then I'll put the Thirlwall document up as well, just to go over it again. Thirlwall saying, they're not saying up to July, are they? They're not saying just up to July here. They're saying for 2015 and 2016. I think they've missed out that August death. Like they don't want to know anything about it. Let's have a look at where they go. Well, I know they have then, because if you look further into that document, it only goes up to baby P, which is 24th of June. 24th of June. They're not mentioning anything happening in August 2016 on any of these at all. Oh, let's have a look at these deaths where they say that they're not part of the indictment. For the post-transfer deaths. This is interesting. Oh, so it's even worse, actually. It's even worse. It's even worse, a disparity, because the months aren't matching up. The first one they say is in the first non-indictment baby, which is a post-transfer death, they're saying is April 2015. Now, let's have a look at the two. Let's have a look at the 2 FOIs. So what happened in April 2015 in the early FOI? Let's have a look at that. In April 2015, no deaths are showing. Nothing. No deaths are showing. On the earlier FOI, let's have a look at the later FOI. Let's have a look at the later FOI. For April 2015, no deaths are showing. So these aren't being explained by the different figures. These are separate to them, I think, all of these post-transfer deaths. So we're still losing. I think we're going to end up losing about 4 or 5 deaths somehow that seem to have disappeared based from the earlier FOI to the later one. In other words, it's not explained by they lumped all the data together and included the post-transfer ones, because these are happening at different times. So the first one is that. The next one is October 2015. So what happens there in the early FOI? Well, it says there's 2 early neonatal deaths in the October, in the early FOI, October 2015, and in the later FOI, it says 1. So it's possible that, so they're all over the shop. It's possible that disparity between those FOIs for October 2015, that one disparity is one of those post-transfer deaths. But if it didn't match up for the April one, in other words, there's no death showing, then why would you think they start doing it for the October? I think they're either doing it or they're not doing it. But let's just say maybe that is one of them. It's all over the shop, really. It's all over the shop. And let's just finish it off then by going to Thirlwall document again. February 2016, a non-indictment baby. There's 1 death in February 2016, they say. Okay. Non-indictment baby. February 2016. So what happens in February 2016 on the old FOI? Yeah, there is one showing there on old FOI. On the later FOI, the 2024 FOI, what does it say? What does it say there? February 2016. Yes, there's one there as well. I don't think it's the same one, because all the ones that on the later FOI that match they're not post because they've got to because on the later FOI 8 and 5 yearly totals, they can only be babies that passed away in the neonatal unit at COCH, because they add up to 13, and Thirlwall says there were 13 on the unit, 4 post-transfer and 1 in the paternity unit. So that one isn't that. What does all this mean? Baby K on the same baby K, it's another baby. So there's another February date one. That's another February date. And then they got another baby in, there's here you see there's another baby here, which is the baby that sadly passed away in the central labour suite in January 2016. Now we had in the early FOI we've got 3 deaths in that. Is it possible that baby is listed as one of those? Possibly, but it doesn't explain the other death that's listed there. And that other death that's listed there isn't a post-transfer death, because it doesn't match up with the Thirlwall months given here. So we're still 1, possibly 2 deaths disparity. I don't know if any of that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me in the sense that I can't resolve it. I can't resolve the logic of those 2 FOIs leading to this Thirlwall document where it says there's a total of only 13 deaths in the unit, 4 post-transfer and 1 death on the central labour suite. I can't resolve that as making sense as adding up, unless we're meant to believe they're just putting random figures in the earlier FOI, just for the hell of it. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? How is it possible in the earlier FOI that they miss the deaths out that they know has happened on that unit in August and October 2015, and then they put them back in again in 2024? I don't know. I'm going to have to do some screenshots and I'll put them up there. Some of you may have these documents anyway, but I'll just put it up as a sequence without me rabbiting over them, and you can have a look at them. And if you haven't got the original documents, there's something wrong with these figures. There's something wrong, and I'm concerned about the August 2016 death, as I've always been. It's a late neonatal death. I don't believe it's obviously it's clearly not one of the post-transfer deaths, because that's not mentioned, because on the Thirlwall document there's no August 2016 here. They just they've ignored it. Thirlwall has ignored that as a death happening across those 2 years. Now, if you're looking at deaths happening across 2 years, why do you stop when somebody leaves the unit? Why would you do that? Because you're not looking at the deaths across the 2 years. It's yet another iteration of them only being concerned when Lucy Letby is working there, rather than the deaths per se. Just another iteration of that, I believe. But I think there's potentially more of a disparity than one. If we believe the veracity, if there is a veracity to the earlier FOI, then we've got a disparity of possibly up to 4 deaths between the FOI, between the 2 FOIs that don't make sense. I had thought hitherto that because of this Thirlwall inquiry document, it starts talking about post-transfer deaths, but they're not matching up. They're not matching up with the months of the original FOI, so I don't think they can be explained. In other words, the disparity between the earlier and later FOIs cannot be explained by the Thirlwall inquiry's listing of post-transfer deaths. One might be able to be, possibly, and even that you're not sure about. You don't know. And it wouldn't make sense that one would and none of the others wouldn't be there. Why aren't the others there? In other words, if they're... The idea that it's so haphazard, that the recording of deaths is so haphazard and so confusing and contradictory, is utterly bizarre. And it makes you wonder whether they're doing that for a reason. And the death in August 2016 was always an issue because Lucy's left, I don't think it's on there, and I think potentially up to 3, maybe even 4 other deaths, there's something that were listed originally just sort of disappeared somehow. I don't think it's beyond reasonable doubt that they might do something like that. It's not beyond reasonable doubt. And the same with the concept of miscoding, deliberately miscoding for a particular reason, for an agenda, to make the figures look better, to miscode early neonatal deaths as stillbirths. But there's still a disparity. There's still something really wrong with these figures. I'm not happy with the Thirlwall inquiry that says there are 18 deaths across those 2 years, and they're including 4 that happen elsewhere and 1 that happens on the labour sweep. There's other deaths been mentioned that seem to be disappeared, and why? How can that happen? How does that happen? How do they end up being in an FOI? Just somebody just putting them down there randomly, and they're not matching up. The deaths that are in disparity, that's not the phrase, the deaths that contradict between the earlier and later FOIs aren't being explained, except possibly one, and only possibly one of them, aren't being explained by the idea of post-transfer deaths that Thirlwall inquiry mentions. That's where I've got to with it. That's where I think we can potentially get to with it. But see what you think if you've got this far. I know it's difficult to follow when I haven't done it like forensically and showed you every little difference and flick between them. But if I put up all the screenshots of them, you can see yourself. What I'll do is I'll put up screenshots of the following in this order. There'll be the 2018 FOI screenshots, then the 2023/2024 FOI screenshots, and then there'll finally be this Thirlwall inquiry screenshots of the main first page, and then the section where it talks about the post-transfer deaths, and also the death, the sad death of the baby that on the labour suite. Thank you very much and for listening, and appreciate if you've listened. And there's just something not right with this, as I'm sure there's so much that's not right, obviously, but this is just another thing. It just doesn't go away for me, the figures aspect of it. Take care. Bye-bye.